Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you've been struggling with rising costs and wondering if help is on the way, I've got some really important news to share with you today. President Trump is talking about sending $2,000 stimulus checks to Americans, and this isn't the first time he's mentioned it. In fact, this is the third time he's brought this up, and this time he says he wants to get it done before the end of the year. Now, I know you're probably thinking, I've heard this before, is this actually going to happen? And that's exactly what I'm going to break down for you today. I spent hours going through the legislative proposals, the president's statements, and the actual bill that's already been drafted. Yes, there's already legislation written for this, so you don't have to. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what's being proposed, who qualifies, and most importantly, whether seniors on Social Security and people on disability are included. So stick with me because this could mean real money in your pocket. Here's what a lot of people don't know. This $2,000 stimulus proposal didn't just come out of nowhere. This has been building throughout the year, and I'm going to walk you through the timeline so you understand why this time feels different. First proposal, July. Back in July, President Trump first mentioned sending Americans a $600 rebate. He talked about it on a news channel, and immediately Senator Josh Hawley from Missouri took action. He didn't just talk about it, he actually drafted legislation called the American Worker Rebate Act. This wasn't a concept. This was a real bill written into Congress. The legislation said it would work just like the stimulus checks we got during the pandemic, with similar parameters. And here's what's critical. It specifically included seniors on Social Security and people on disability. You weren't going to be left out. Second proposal, October. Then, in October, the president went on Fox News and increased that amount. He said he was considering sending $1,000 to $2,000 stimulus checks. He called it a dividend to the people of America and said it would be funded from tariff revenues. So we're not talking about adding to the deficit. This money would come from tariffs that have already been collected. Third proposal. Now, just a few days ago, the president brought it up again. But this time, there's something different. He says he wants to do it before the end of the year. We're talking about the next few weeks here, not some vague future promise. Now let me show you what the actual bill says, because I read through Senator Hawley's legislation so you don't have to wade through all the legal language. The bill amends the Internal Revenue Code to provide rebates to individuals using tariff proceeds. It could not be more clear than that. The original legislation specified $600 per person, with language that said, or more, if additional tariff revenue comes in. So the framework is already there. They don't have to start from scratch. They already have a template that can be modified from $600 to $2,000. And when you have a president who's made this a priority, mentioning it 3 times publicly, that's significant. Here's what I think this means. When President Trump wants something from this Congress, he gets it. Look at what happened with other major legislation this year. When he makes something a priority, it happens. And the fact that he's brought this up 3 times, with increasing urgency, tells me he's serious about getting this done. Now let's talk about the most important question. Who actually gets this money? Because I know many of you watching are seniors on Social Security, people on disability, or folks on fixed incomes who are wondering if you're included. Seniors on Social Security, yes, you're specifically included. The legislation that was drafted mirrors the pandemic stimulus, which means if you're receiving Social Security retirement benefits, you would automatically qualify. You wouldn't need to file anything special or jump through hoops. People on disability, if you're on SSDI or SSI, you're included too. The framework treats you the same as everyone else. You'd get the full payment, not a reduced amount. Veterans, whether you're receiving VA benefits or you're a senior veteran on Social Security, you'd qualify. In fact, there are about 1.5 million veterans who would benefit from this. Working families. Just like the pandemic stimulus, there would be income thresholds. Based on the previous checks, we're looking at individuals making under $75,000 and married couples under $150,000 getting the full amount, with phase-outs above those levels. Parents and caregivers. If you have dependent children, you'd likely get additional payments per child, just like the previous stimulus rounds. The key thing here is that if you received the pandemic stimulus checks, you'd almost certainly qualify for this one too. They're using the same basic framework. Look, I want to be straight with you about why I think this is more than just talk. First, the economy is tough right now, especially for people on fixed incomes. Everything has gone up: groceries, utilities, housing costs, and those prices have stayed up. If you're on Social Security, you got a COLA increase, but it didn't come close to covering how much everything costs now. Second, there's been criticism that tariffs have contributed to rising costs. Whether you agree with that or not, what better way to address that concern than by giving direct payments from tariff revenue back to the American people? It's a way of saying, yes, we collected this money and we're giving it directly back to you. Third, this isn't being positioned as emergency pandemic relief. It's being framed as an economic dividend, sharing revenue that's been collected with the people. That's a different political argument, and one that might have broader support. And fourth, and this is important, we're heading into an election year. Politicians know that direct payments to Americans are popular, and they know people are struggling. That creates real political will to get something like this done. Now, I need to give you the reality check about timing, because I don't want to give you false hope. The president says he wants this done before the end of the year. We're looking at potentially just a few weeks. Can that actually happen? Here's my honest assessment. What works in our favor? The legislation is already drafted. Senator Hawley created the template back in July. They don't need to start from zero. They just need to modify the amount from $600 to $2,000. That's a much simpler lift than creating a brand new bill from scratch. Also, when the president makes something a priority with this Congress, things can move quickly. We've seen that happen multiple times this year with major legislation. What's challenging? Even in the best-case scenario, this needs to pass both the House and the Senate, get signed by the president, and then the IRS needs to set up the payment systems. That takes time, even when everyone is on board. My realistic expectation? If this passes in December, you're probably looking at payments in January or February 2026 at the earliest. The IRS doesn't work fast, and they need time to process 100+ million payments. But here's the encouraging part. The infrastructure already exists from the pandemic payments. They know how to do this. Your information is already in the system if you filed taxes or receive Social Security. Let me give you concrete action steps so you're ready if and when this happens. Step 1. Make sure you filed your 2024 taxes, even if you don't owe taxes, even if your only income is Social Security file. This is critical. The IRS uses your tax return to know you exist and where to send money. I cannot stress this enough. People who didn't file got their pandemic checks months late, or not at all. If you're on Social Security or disability and don't usually file, you still need to file a simple return. It takes 15 minutes and ensures you won't be left out. Step 2. Update your direct deposit information. Go to irs.gov and make sure your bank account information is current. If you've changed banks since 2021, they won't know where to send your money. Direct deposit is the fastest way to get paid. Checks in the mail can take weeks longer. Step 3. Watch out for scams. This is critical. As soon as this gets announced, scammers are going to come out of the woodwork. Here's what you need to know. The IRS will never call you, text you, or email you about stimulus payments. You don't need to apply or pay any processing fee. Anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to scam you. If someone contacts you saying you need to verify information or pay money to get your stimulus, it's a scam. Hang up. Delete the email. Block the number. Step 4. Stay informed. This situation is literally changing week by week. I'm monitoring this constantly and will keep you updated on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss critical updates. Now, I need to be completely honest with you about the obstacles because I promised you the full truth, not just what you want to hear. Congressional approval. This still needs to pass both chambers of Congress. While the president has influence, every member gets a vote, and some may have concerns about the cost. We're talking about roughly $400 to $500 billion, depending on how many people qualify. Budget concerns. Even though this would be funded by tariff revenue, some lawmakers will argue about the total cost and whether that money should be used elsewhere. Timing pressure. Trying to pass this before the end of the year when Congress has other priorities is ambitious. They still need to deal with other funding issues and upcoming deadlines. IRS capacity. Even if it passes tomorrow, the IRS is understaffed and overwhelmed. Setting up payment systems, verifying eligibility, and processing hundreds of millions of payments takes time. But here's why I'm still cautiously optimistic. When there's real political will, when the president is publicly pushing for something and voters want it, things can happen faster than you'd expect. The pandemic stimulus checks were set up and distributed in a matter of weeks once the legislation passed. So, will this actually happen? Here's my take after following this closely. I think the chances are genuinely good, better than 50-50. Here's why. This is the third time the president has brought this up publicly, and each time he's been more specific and urgent about it. That's not how politicians operate when they're just floating ideas. That's how they operate when they're building momentum for something they want to get done. The fact that legislation already exists makes this much more feasible. They're not starting from scratch, and most importantly, this has broad appeal. It's not a partisan issue. It's about putting money in people's pockets during tough economic times. My prediction? I think we'll see movement on this in December. Whether it actually passes before the end of the year or gets pushed into early January depends on how much political capital the president is willing to spend on it. But I do think we're looking at a real possibility of stimulus payments in the first quarter of 2026. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. Politics is unpredictable. But I'm reading the tea leaves here, and they're pointing toward this actually happening. Let me just take a moment to talk about what $2,000 would actually mean for the people watching this video. If you're a senior on Social Security, this could mean catching up on bills that have been piling up. It could mean finally getting that medical procedure you've been putting off because of the cost. It could mean buying groceries without having to choose between food and medicine. If you're on disability and living on a fixed income that barely covers rent, this could be the difference between staying in your home and facing eviction. If you're a veteran who's been struggling, this is recognition that you deserve support, not just thank yous. For families, this could mean $2,000 per adult plus additional money for kids. A family of 4 could be looking at $6,000 or more. That's not small change. That's real, life-changing money. And I know some people will say, it's just a one-time payment, it doesn't solve everything. And they're right. But you know what? When you're drowning, somebody throwing you a life preserver doesn't solve all your problems. But it keeps you afloat. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. You deserve relief. You deserve to not have to choose between heating and eating. And I think more lawmakers are finally understanding that. So here's where we're at. This isn't guaranteed, but it's more real than most proposals we hear about. There's actual legislation, repeated presidential support, and legitimate momentum building. Keep your expectations realistic, but don't lose hope. And most importantly, take those action steps I mentioned. File your taxes, update your information, protect yourself from scams, and stay informed. If this video helped you understand what's actually happening with the stimulus situation, please hit that like button. It helps other people who are searching for real, honest information find this video instead of clickbait that doesn't give them the full story. And if you're not subscribed yet, click that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. I post updates about benefits, stimulus news, Social Security, Medicare, and financial resources for people on fixed incomes every single week. This is a judgment-free zone where we help each other navigate these complicated systems and cut through the political noise to get to the truth. I've also got videos about state-specific relief programs, Medicare open enrollment, food stamp benefits, and emergency assistance programs. And hey, do me a favor. Drop a comment and let me know your city and state. I love knowing where you're watching from and what issues matter most to you in your area. Your comments help me know what content to create next. You've got this. We're in this together. I'm not going anywhere. I'll keep digging through these proposals, reading the legislation, and bringing you the truth about what's really happening. Thank you for trusting me with this information. Thank you for being part of this community. And I'll see you in the next video with more updates as this story develops.